inflation measures that I watch that are very, very effective in the United States, for now, at least, right? The relationship between factory inventories and so the ISM factory inventories and customer inventories, the net number. There's still a lot of disruption in the supply chain. There's actually a surprising number of firms that say they have too low inventory, but the number of firms that are saying they have inventory that's too high is up to crisis levels, yes. Right? And that feeds very, very directly to factory prices in China, with basically a one or 2 month lag, and those are in deflation, right? So that leads to U.S. inflation with a little bit less than 18 months, say, and we're just about to start hitting the steep decline in inflation pressure that was going away 18 months ago at this time, right? So because of that lag, right, you can see what's coming, and there's about to be a surprisingly fast decline in inflation in the United States as measured, right? And so the Fed has already set up this dovish easing, right? Or a hawkish easing is what they'll paint it as, a hawkish easing, right? Because in this press conference for the June meeting, the economic projections expected that interest rates would start being cut, even though the chairman had said, he didn't really think there would be a recession. And one of the reporters asked about that, and he pointed out correctly, but somewhat mistakenly, that if interest rates are, if inflation rates are coming down, right, then real interest rates will be rising unless nominal interest rates fall, right? So he's saying, oh, well, to stay where we are, right, then we'll have to cut rates. And I think that's important to note because, first of all, everything's based on expectations, right? So by doing that, he's prematurely easing. Right. And so I think the fight will be in the Fed will be over how fast to ease, right, to come down to keep real interest rates stable. And they'll be getting a lot of political pressure to do it faster. And the thing is that the labor market remains very, very tight at structural bottom for unemployment, right? So the labor market, this is something I cover very closely. The labor market in the United States has been, and in much of the developed world, has been tighter than tight, as I say, right? So that means that demand is higher than available supply. So that even if demand for labor comes down quite a bit, there still won't be an increase in unemployment because they still need people, right? And so this is the problem with the Fed's, it's a good problem to have, but not when you're in an inflationary equilibrium. And so what I'm expecting is that I've been saying for a long time, we're not going to have a recession because right now, because in an inflationary equilibrium, you don't have the type of credit events that you have in a low inflation equilibrium, right? So when someone is when credit's easy and inflation is running high, right, it's not that hard to just stay ahead of your payments, right? And so that slowdown, that in a low inflation equilibrium, when the economy slows down below its average growth rate, right, all of a sudden people start to run into payments trouble, and there's, they can't just cheat with inflation to stay ahead, right? And so there's a negative momentum, and then the economy falls into recession. You don't have that same situation in an inflationary equilibrium. You get slowdowns when the economy runs out of capacity to grow because there's literally no more, and inflation goes up. And so that's where these stagflationary spikes come from, right? Where growth cannot occur. And so it's strange because it's like, why isn't growth occurring, but real incomes are getting squeezed because inflation is rising? So it feels bad, but it's not a recession. And so that's the mindset that investors and business people need to make that change, because for the next 10 years, We're going to be in this inflationary equilibrium where if there is a recession, it'll be because you have a nasty external shock, like a war that causes natural gas or oil prices to spike, right? Now, I'm not saying that there won't be a recession during this 10-year period, but there definitely will be, and there probably will be in 2024. But it won't happen the same way that it would have during that low inflationary equilibrium period, where bringing inflation down to its stable rate is not a difficult thing to do, and they're more worried about preventing recession than they are about preventing inflation.